Hello boys and girls, welcome back to Sunya IAS PSIR course. This is lecture number 15 and we're going to talk about Hobbes. In this lecture, I'm going to cover Hobbes' conception of sovereignty, the features of his social contract, and the criticisms will critically evaluate his understanding of sovereignty and his concept of social contract. And if time permits, I'm going to explore his understanding of law. Right, let's begin. So, first topic of the day is Hobbes' conception of sovereignty. Hobbes' conception of sovereignty. Now, in the modern sense, let's understand two definitions. One is that of the state, the other is that of the concept of sovereignty in today's sense. Now, how do you define state? Let's use the example of Max Weber. Max Weber, a German sociologist, political thinker. He gave the most apt, correct definition of state, modern sovereign state. So he says, state is any human community / any human organization that successfully claims the monopoly, singular, concentrated use of what? Legitimate force in a given territory. I'll explain each and every bit of this. Right? Let's write this down. So Weber says the state is an organization, a community, any human organization / community that, I'm not going to use the word that, they're keywords, but I'm only going to use proper keywords, not connecting words here. Any human organization / community that successfully claims the monopoly of legitimate use of force / violence in a given territory. In a given territory, one by one, I have broken up, I have deconstructed, I have broken apart the definition into these keywords. Now, understand. Obviously, state, government is an organization consisting of, let's say, a king and his ministers and other subordinate officers, or a prime minister or subordinate ministers. Right? It may be different forms of government, but it is an organization after all. You agree with this? Then successfully claims. Take the example of the Taliban. In Afghanistan, before the year 2021, especially the month of August, specifically August 2021, Who ruled Afghanistan? The Islamic Republic of Afghanistan government, led by President Ashraf Ghani, right? And when the Americans left Afghanistan, Taliban, the till then so-called terrorist organization, started conquering territories one after the other and finally reached the capital Kabul. And the president of the Islamic Republic, Ashraf Ghani, and his government ran away, right? And Kabul, the capital, was overrun and conquered by the Taliban. Now, the Taliban may not have international recognition. The international community or family or committee of nations may not have officially recognized the Taliban as the legitimate legal government of Afghanistan. But Taliban government is the only organization that has complete monopoly, means it has no challenger in any part of the Afghan territory, right? If it had a challenger, let's say in some western or northern or southeastern districts of Afghanistan, if it had challengers, a rival organization waging a civil war against the Taliban, then we could have said the Taliban does not successfully claim the use of force, the monopoly of use of force. Monopoly means if it is the only organization that can use force in a given territory. Right. Now, Taliban has no challenges. So the erstwhile Afghan government, the former Afghan government, the former regime or dispensation that ruled Afghanistan from the year 2001 till 2021, the Islamic Republic, first led by President Hamid Karzai, then from 2015 onwards led by President Ashraf Ghani. This government and its ministers and all the functionaries, majority of them, ran away, escaped. Why? Because they were not willing to fight the Taliban. So now, which power, which organization has successfully claimed monopoly of use of force in Afghanistan? It is the Taliban. So Taliban is the state, right? But Max Weber adds another keyword here, legitimate. So legitimacy means if the state is ruling, yes, there are several unhappy people in Afghanistan who wish to see the Taliban gone. But are they doing anything about it? Are they resisting Taliban? Are they attacking Taliban? Because this is very important. You may say, oh, the Taliban is so strong. How can you fight a lion? How can sheep or goats fight the lion? It's so strong. It has international backers. Fine. Then you've given some sort of a tacit consent, indirect consent. Because this is what Thomas Hobbes also says. Once the sovereign has come to power, if there are people in society who do not like the sovereign, either they leave that territory, go out of that territory, or they fight the challenge, the sovereign, or replace it if they have the necessary guts, the nerve, and the wherewithal and the will to do it, or चुपचाप उधर ही रहो, sovereign की laws follow करो, or be completely destroyed by the majority. Taliban may not be internationally, officially, on paper, formally recognized, but it is not seeing any challenges from within its own territory. So it may not be this, there may be a lot of people unhappy, but that unhappiness has not translated into open revolt, open rebellion or revolution, right? Therefore, For all intents and purposes, de facto rulers of Afghanistan is the Taliban, formerly a terrorist organization, now a militant government ruling Afghanistan, an Islamo-fascist regressive government ruling Afghanistan. I hate them, but their raw power has claimed monopoly of use of force within Afghanistan. This is the meaning of the state. So Afghanistan का state कौन सी है? कौन है? Taliban. Remember that. This is how state is defined. Right? Full legitimacy will come when all the people in the country have gladly accepted it and the international community has recognized it. Take the example of the Indian state. A great supermajority of the people, more than 99% of the people, accept the Indian state. Not talking about a sitting government ruled by a particular party. The Indian state, the Union of India, the Republic of India, the Constitution of India is by and large accepted by all. Who are the challengers? Are they a serious threat? And where are they? One, you have the internal challenges, the Naxals, the left-wing extremists, but they are so small, confined to one particular forest area, that they cannot be called a serious contender for power at the center. Obviously not. They're just fringe, in the margins, right? Other than that, who are the enemies of the state? Fueled by Pakistan in J&K. Some Khalistani elements, very fringe, again, who wish to secede from India. They are basically separatists. Right? Kashmir militants, Khalistani terrorists, these are separatists. They want to separate their territory, but still, that is a serious threat. But the Naxals completely are against the Indian state, the Indian Republic, and the Constitution. They want a communist state. And again, they're so small, they can't be taken seriously. They just have to be treated as a menace and be justly destroyed or de-radicalized. But by and large, this is the meaning of the state. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of sovereignty? Meaning as in, this is definition, not meaning what is what I explained. This is the definition. Again, if you wish to add the keywords here, according to Max Weber, state is any human organization / community that successfully claims the monopoly of legitimate use of force / violence in a given territory. In a given territory. Territory is very important. Now, somewhat related, sovereignty. So, sovereignty means supreme, unrestricted, unchallenged, unrestrained power and authority to make the laws, rules, regulations within a given territory. Within a given territory, on the people, residents, human beings, individuals, associations, organizations residing, inhabiting within that given territory. I've used multiple keywords, synonyms, but simplistically, in straightforward language, sovereignty refers to the supreme power and authority of an organization to make laws within a given territory and govern the people residing in that territory. Katham. Right? Let's write this down. So sovereignty means, number one, this is the modern understanding. You don't have to write any thinker's name here, boys and girls. So sovereignty refers to the supreme to make laws within a given territory and on the people residing in that territory. Do some slashing here. Supreme, unrestricted, no challenger, unchallenged. Taliban has no challenger. It has raw power, and it is the only organization that is making the rules, giving commands within the territory of Afghanistan on the people of that country, on the people of Afghanistan. Same way, the Indian state, the Union of India, is the supreme organization with the supreme power and authority to make laws. How these laws are made, parliament banayega ye sab, but they're all organs of the Indian state, right? Law banana ek particular sub unit of that organization will do, obviously, right? So the Indian state has supreme power and authority to make laws that govern the Indian territory and the people residing inside it, right? Funny. Very important, these two definitions, right? Now, so right here, remember in the previous class I taught you the theory of sovereignty forwarded, proposed, explained by Jean Baudin, the French political thinker. What did he say? He also said sovereignty refers to supreme authority, absolute authority of an organization in a society, right? He also had a similar definition, but there were some problematic aspects in his theory. What were those? He had put some restrictions. Here it is written unrestricted, right? On the one hand, he would say supreme. Supreme absolute means unrestricted, but he still placed some restrictions on sovereign power. What were these restrictions that contradicted, nullified, voided his own theory? Right? What were those restrictions? Number one, he said a king could not violate the laws of nature. But what are these laws of nature? Whatever king may do, the people will say, okay, this is something you've violative of laws of nature. You have violated laws of nature. So king cannot do anything. For everything he'll face criticisms and challenges and accusations. Number two, he said the king could not violate the fundamental law of the land. This was okay, fine, chalega. Remember the example I gave regarding one particular fundamental law, constitutional law that had been practiced for decades in his country, France, the law of primogeniture, which means if when the king dies, his eldest male son, his eldest male heir would ascend the throne. Law of primogeniture. And the king could, the sovereign could not violate these kind of fundamental laws practiced since centuries in that land. Right, first is the king could not violate natural laws. Second is the king could not violate the fundamental constitutional basic law of the land. And third, which was this most stupidest thing, the king could not violate the property rights of the residents or the subjects or the praja or the citizens. The most atrocious problematic thing in his theory. King can declare war, king can prosecute war, king has to build roads, raise an army, but could not raise resources to fund that army, to build the roads, to prosecute a war. Right? So king could not violate a person's property. So how will he levy taxes? If I am the king and I say you pay tax, you will say, oh, that money is my property. You're violating my property, Your Majesty King. I'm not going to let you do that. Because Jean Bodin said you could not do it and should not do it and ought not to do it. So in a way, he said sovereignty means supreme power with one hand. With the other, he said king could not do this, king could not do that. Thereby, he nullified and voided. He rendered his own theory null and void. He contradicted his own theory. Right. And this is where Thomas Hobbes enters. And what he does, when there are holes on the road, what do? We plug those holes, right? He plugged the loopholes. Thomas Hobbes, boys and girls, plugged the loopholes. He corrected the issues left open by Jean Bodin. Yes, Hobbes was influenced by Bodin, but he corrected his master. So what did he say? Hobbes said sovereignty is unrestricted and unchallenged power. Sovereignty has no limitation. Laws of nature. What is laws of nature? Whatever sovereign interprets, that becomes the law. There is no laws of nature that will limit his powers. What is the fundamental law of the land? What the sovereign says, that is the law of the land. Law is the command of the sovereign. And the sovereign can seize, take your property, and do whatever the sovereign wants with it. He can declare war, prosecute a war, do anything. And he has no restriction on his power. Yes, there is one restriction which I'll tell you in a bit. Now, so we can say in the introduction, I want you to write right now, although Bodin, Bodin, although Bodin deserves credit, फिर से बोल रहा हूं, deserves credit for initiating, शुरुआत किया है ना sovereignty की डिस्कस करना, for initiating the first proposed model of sovereignty, comma, फिर से बोल रहा हूं, the first proposed model of sovereignty, comma, it is Hobbes who must be appropriately described as the father of the modern theory of sovereignty. The modern theory of sovereignty. Right. Next segment, boys and girls, is why a sovereign state is erected, is created, is founded, is institutionalized. ये स्टेट का खड़ा क्यों किया भाई? Remember what was the problem? Again, close your eyes and imagine. Tomorrow, the government disappears, the police disappears, the laws and the law codes disappear, there are no rules, there are no regulation, and we 140 crore people have to live without a government. What will we do? What will you and I do? First thing I'll do is go rob a supermarket, gather, round up all the resources that me and my family may require, some of my friends too, take them home. What else can I do? Because if I don't go and steal them, you will or someone else will. Right? Then while I'm going and stealing, looking for food in the store, you may come there, you may attack me because you also want those things for yourself. So like this, war starts. Between whom? You and I. War of all against all. War of every man against every other man. Right? Arajakta, anarchy, chaos, lawless, violence and disorder. Similarly, boys and girls, Thomas Hobbes also, he wanted to justify why we require an absolute sovereign state. To do this, what did he do? He also imagined like this. He also came up with a hypothetical thought experiment. He imagined a situation where the government would not be there, and he called that paristiti, vatavaran, atmosphere, situation and that world as the state of nature. Natural state, jungle raj, matsya nyaya, state of nature. And in the state of nature, there are no artificial things. Government is artificial. Why, boys and girls? Because art means man-made. Painting is art, right? Why? Because it is man-made. You grow paintings on trees? No. We paint, you paint, I paint. Art means artificial. Anything man-made is artificial. Right? State is a man-made institution. Therefore, it is artificial. It is not born in the nature. Can you find it or its evolution in nature? It is not. It is we who consciously make the state. Right? So, in the state of nature, there is no artificial organization like the state. Right? Now, what will happen? According to Hobbes, in this situation, there will be war of all against all. Let's write this down. State of nature is equal to state of war. Now, how are we escaping from this? In this war, in the state of nature, what drives us, what motivates us? Our desire to live and survive, and our desire to take possession of things, because there is no government. We all have what? Unlimited rights, unlimited freedoms. Today, do I have the right to punch you and kill you? I don't, right? Because my relationship with you is regulated by law made by the state, right? State ultimately does what? What is its core, primary, fundamental function? To regulate my behavior with you, your behavior with me, to regulate our interactions and conduct with each other. You cannot hurt me, I cannot hurt you. If I hurt you, you will take me to court, the court will put me in jail, and the court is an organ of the state. Simple. When this government, so this court is completely gone, there are no regulations and limitations as to how I'll treat you, as to how you will treat me. So I have unlimited powers over you, you have unlimited powers over me. I have unlimited powers over this pen, over anything in this world. The only thing that limits me is your power. Right? If you're more powerful than me, you have rights over my body and all my resources. If I have more powers than you, I have obviously the right over your body and your resources. What is this? Might is right. Big fish will eat the small fish. The lion, the tiger, the jaguar, the leopard, the cheetah, the puma will eat the deer, the khargosh, the rabbit. The big animal, the mightier animal will eat the small animal. This is exactly the opposite of Nyaya and justice. Because what is justice? Protecting the weak. According to Kautilya, Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, Vedas, what do they say? What does Bhishma say when he is lying in the bed of arrows after the Kurukshetra war? When Yudhishthira is saying, oh, I've killed my brothers. What is there to be king of? I'm king. For what purpose? What's the point of being king after so much bloodshed, violence and death? Bhishma, who's lying almost dead in a bed of arrows, he calls Yudhishthira, idhar aao beta. Kya kehta hai? He says, Raja, you become king at all costs. Why? Because it's your duty. Raja Dharma means protecting the weak. This is the talwar, the sword of the king. This is the rod of punishment, the rod of chastisement. And this rod is to protect the weak. Strong don't deserve protection. They'll take care of themselves. It is the weak, the women, the children, the vulnerable sections, the minorities, the weaker sections, the marginalized. They deserve protection from the state. Ultimately, the role of the state is to protect the weak. In the state of nature, if I'm strong and you're weak, I will win, you will die. If you're strong and I'm weak, the opposite happens. Right? So here, what is motivating us? My fear of you. Because I'm scared of you, I will try to get as many weapons to fight against you. Another thing, my desire to survive. And that requires me being alive, you being dead, because you are my competition. And that also requires me having the necessary resources to survive. Not just today, but for tomorrow and the days to come. Not just my survival, the survival of my wife, my parents and my children. Right? So we're all fighting against each other. And we are being driven by desires and passions and emotions, such as fear and wants and desires. Now, what is the other faculty of the human mind apart from desire? There are two faculties. One, the faculty of desire / passion. Faculties, human faculties. Matlab masters who guide us in our mind. One is desire or emotion or passion. Fear of dying is an emotion. Desire to survive is also an emotion, right? What is the other good one we have? Reason, intelligence, rationality, logic, samajhdari, wisdom. Wisdom says, अगर हम ऐसे डिजायर फियर से चलाएंगे इधर स्टेट ऑफ नेचर, हम इस स्टेट ऑफ नेचर को छोड़ के कभी बाहर नहीं आ पाएंगे. हमें क्या करना है? हमें पाना है शांति. Right? So, wisdom, what does it do? It reason, it dictates to us. It gives us some dictats, it gives us some commands. Dictates of reason, which Hobbes calls as laws of nature. Right? What are the dictates of reason, boys and girls? Number one, seek and observe peace. Number two, give up. What did I say? In the absence of government, I have unlimited natural rights. Right? Because we are living in the state of nature where there is no artificial institutions like the government. What do I have? I have unlimited powers over you and your things. You also have unlimited powers. No law is limiting your action. No law is limiting your power. When you and I fight, whoever is stronger will win. Right? The same applies to all the crores of people in this territory. We all have unlimited powers. So understand these unlimited powers as unlimited rights. Right? Unlimited rights. हकदार सब के ऊपर है, सब चीज के ऊपर है. बट जो सबसे ज्यादा शक्तिशाली है वही जीतेगा, जो जीतेगा वही सिकंदर है. ठीक है? Right? Unlimited powers, unlimited rights. And where do we have these unlimited rights and power? in the state of nature where there is no government and man-made laws, right? So we are in the state of nature. So let us call the unlimited natural rights as rights of nature. In nature, where there is no artificial institution like the government and the laws to regulate us, in the jungle, what do we have? Unlimited rights, right? Unlimited rights, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Unlimited rights say, are we happy? Are we safe? Is your family safe? Are your things safe? No. We are always desirous and fearful of dying. The only thing we are worried about is eating and survival. Is that a good life? No. So, our reason tells us to observe, to get this peace, we all have to give up our the unlimited natural rights. Okay, so doing this giving up aspect ko a contract banao, make a contract that represents this renunciation, giving up. Make a contract. Now here comes the problem. Okay, we are signing the contract. Contracts are also called as covenant, agreement, compacts. So these contracts, are they not meaningless if nobody follows it, nobody upholds it or honors it, right? But the problem in honoring the contract is, understand our natural rights as weapons. तेरे पास एक गन है और एक तलवार है. You have a sword and a banduk, a pistol or a rifle. So do I. Now, there are 100 people like that in our society, in our country, and all are fighting against each other. And suddenly, हम सब के अंदर जो reason है, the reason we all have inside us, tells us, guides all of us at the same time, that to escape this horrible state of war, we need to seek and observe peace. And to seek and observe peace, we all have to give up our weapons. So this weapons is representative of our rights. Okay? So we have to give up our hatyar. Okay? Now, I am scared that if I give up my hatyar and if you don't, I am completely weak and exposed and you will kill me. Same fear you also have. एक बार मेरे हाथ से वेपन गया, हैंड्स अप कर लिया और तुमने गोली मारा तो खत्म बात. That is one. The other desire may be, we are all slaves of our own desires, right? The other desire may be, I may think, okay, if you are giving up your weapons, it means, and if I retain my weapons, I can enslave you, make you my gulam and take all your possessions, right? So every individual has a sort of distrust, शक अगेंस्ट द अदर. आइदर कि वो मेरे को मारेगा या मैं उसको मारूं और उसको सारा सामान ले लूं, चीजें, थिंग्स, पोजेशंस. सो व्हाट हैपेंस हियर? कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अपहोल्ड ही नहीं होगा. एंड ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिर्फ खाली कागज, खाली शब्द, वर्ड्स. सो हॉब्स एक फेमस स्टेटमेंट बोलता है in this context. He says, contract को क्या बोलते? Covenants without the sword are merely words. खाली words, कागज, are merely words and have no strength to secure man at all. मतलब उनमें इन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में जिसका कोई एनफोर्स करने का कोई पावरफुल अथॉरिटी नहीं है, वो खाली शब्द है और उनके पास कोई ताकत नहीं है टू गिव ह्यूमन बीइंग्स सिक्योरिटी एंड सेफ्टी एंड प्रोटेक्शन. तो क्या चाहिए हमें? इन कवेनेंट्स को एनफोर्स करने, impose करने, implement करने, ताकि no individual who has signed this covenant violates it. What do we need? The birth of the sovereign state. We are talking about sovereignty, right? In this context, Hobbes creates the sovereign. In this context, he says human beings create a sovereign government that will enforce this contract on all the individuals. Right? So, in this context, boys and girls, sovereign is created by the contract to preserve peace by enforcing the contract on all individuals and punishing anyone who violated the contract. Okay. Now, remember, this contract is made by every individual with every other individuals. All individuals come together and they sign this contract. When they sign this contract, the state is created, and that state enforces that very same contract. Keep in mind. Okay. Now, two chief functions. What the states, so dual function is what? Number one, internal peace. That is law and order. Number two, the state defends us against Pakistan and China, against external threats, foreign threats. Against external, करो अच्छा अच्छा sorry about that. There was a flea in my coffee. I couldn't drink it. Now, dual functions, right? Maintenance of law and order, police requiring law courts for the adjudication, administration, and enforcement of laws, and protecting against external threats, the Chinese, the Pakistanis. Do these functions not require money and resources? Right? Sufficient resources. So this requires a lot of money, right? And so state, we can say, we can say, I don't know. Now, let's see the features of sovereign power. Features sovereignty as understood by, as theorized by Thomas Hobbes. Number one, the sovereign state is the only law-making authority, sole law-making agency in the given territory. In a given territory. Sovereign is absolute, supreme, and unchallenged, undisputed. Right? He regulates the conduct, actions, deeds, behavior, interactions of all individuals and all institutions or organizations in the given territory. Other organizations such as the church, etc., is completely subordinated. Right? Example here. Remember the context I've taught you before Machiavelli, Hobbes. The church would interfere in the affairs of the king. The church would tell the king, do this, don't do that. Right? So, but Hobbes, like Machiavelli, carries the trend further. Example, the church completely subordinated under the sovereign state. Under the sovereign state. Now, another point. Remember, sovereignty, it describes a position. Sovereignty is a position, not a person. If a king is sovereign, it is not that human being who sits on the throne that is sovereign. It is the throne, the singhasan, the crown that is sovereign. The office, the position, boys and girls, is sovereign. Okay? It is not the person. Right? The actions and, let's say, the teachings of the church, only if it is permitted, it is lawful. So the sovereign can disband a church or ban or prohibit the church to do certain particular teachings, from to giving certain teachings. Right? Now, individuals cannot revolt, renew, or return. So revolt, individuals cannot revolt against the sovereign, cannot renew the contract. RRR. Right? RRR हमारा भी एक है. Sunya has 2 RRRs. Hobbes has, so Sunya has 1 RRR, Hobbes has 1 RRR, Rajamouli has 1 RRR. Remember this. Cannot revolt against the sovereign, renew the contract, or return back to the state of nature. Right? So individuals are forbidden from doing these 3 R's. So basically, the contract is irrevocable. It cannot be replaced, it cannot be amended or changed. Once you've created the once you've signed the contract, and once the sovereign is created, it's a done deal forever. Again, these are all problematic points. That is why we're going to critically evaluate a social contract. Because John Locke, later, the next thinker, offers us a better model of the social contract, a better concept of sovereignty. The concept of popular sovereignty, where the people are supremely powerful. They are the ultimate deciders. They are the ultimate sovereigns over the government. And remember, cleverly, generally speaking, what is a contract? A contract is a written agreement between two parties, the first party and the second party. First party may be the king, second party may be the praja or the people or the citizens, right? That the king will say, I will protect you. The praja will say, theek hai, if you protect us, we will follow your laws. Simple contract. Here, king is a party to the contract, right? If the contract has two parties, party A or party 1, number 1 signatory, the king, number 2, the people, just like your house agreement, rent agreement. The owner is party number 1, the tenant is party number 2, the kiraidar is party number 2, right? But Hobbes completely changes the meaning of the contract. He says it is not a contract in the traditional sense of the term. He says the king is not a party to the contract because the king was not there when the contract was being signed. So who signed the contract? I have repeated so many times this so that you do not forget. The contract is signed by all individuals, not with any king, boys and girls, but with each other. It is a contract. Just like in the state of nature, there was war of all against all. War of every individual with every other individual. So obviously, logically, if that war has to be stopped, if it had to be stopped, the very same individuals who are fighting against each other should come together and sign the bloody contract. So king का कोई लेना देना नहीं है इस समय. So once the contract is signed, so out of that contract, as a product of that contract, the sovereign is born, right? So see this palm of mine, this is the contract, and every individual signs it. Once all the individuals have signed it, is palm se bahar paida hota hai kaun? Sovereign. That sovereign has to uphold this contract, right? And any individual who violates the terms of the contract must be punished. That is why he says covenants. Covenant means what? Contract. देखो ये कोट को मैं amend करता हूं. Don't think of it as covenants without the sword. Okay? Covenant की जगह contract substitute करो, replace करो. Sword की जगह state या government को replace करो. Right? Now see, contracts without the state are merely words, खाली कागज, खाली शब्द, and have no strength to secure man at all. मतलब इसका कागज is like this. जब साइन करते हैं रेंट एग्रीमेंट, भारत का एम्बलम है, उधर बॉन्ड पेपर बोलते हैं उसको. क्यों? क्योंकि if either of the parties violate the terms of the contract, the violator can be taken to court. Court is an organ of the state. The state punishes the violator. अगर मान लो वही bond, instead of a bond paper, two parties come together, sign an agreement on an empty piece of paper, an A4 sheet. वो खाली कागज है ना, useless कागज, they are nothing but useless words. वही बात है, right? Now, so cleverly, what does Hobbes do? To make sure the king has no challengers, the king cannot be accused of violating the contract, he says the sovereign is a third party. He is not a party or a signatory to the contract. Therefore, the sovereign cannot be accused of violating contract. Remember why Hobbes is worried? He keeps saying, see, he belonged to the times of the Civil War of England, right? So during that time, there was this debates and rivalry between two supreme institutions. Sovereignty was divided between two supreme institutions, the king and parliament. Now, parliament and king were always disagreeing upon which powers either of them have. King would say, I have the power to declare war. Parliament said, ठीक है. Then the king would say, उस war चलाने के लिए I have the power to raise taxes, to raise resources by taxing all of you. King said, Parliament said, no. 400 साल पहले 1215 में मैग्ना कार्टा साइन हुआ था. क्या था मैग्ना कार्टा में? It was a written document, a written agreement, a written assurance given by King John of England to the members of Parliament that without Parliament's approval, new taxes shall not and will not be raised. So, भाई किंग बोलेगा भाई वॉर डिक्लेयर कर सकता हूं बट वॉर चलाने के लिए पैसा नहीं है तो क्या करो भाई? So the parliament would say, we will decide कि हमें वॉर जाना है कि नहीं, whether there is an imminent threat from the enemy. So on these issues, who will declare war? Is there a threat of war? Do we require more resources? And if yes, how will we do so? On these matters, there was a huge disagreement between the king and parliament, and finally in the year 1641, war breaks out between king and parliament. So Hobbes was in England during this time. He was very close to the royal family and their friends, but he didn't really care about who would be sovereign, whether king or parliament. What he mostly wanted was, even if parliament is sovereign or the king is sovereign, the only thing that should matter is sovereignty must be in one institution. It should not be divided. If you divide it, there will be disagreement. When there is disagreement, there is conflict and civil war. When there is civil war, there is anarchy. And anarchy is nothing but state of nature. To avoid this, he wanted to concentrate all the powers in one institution. Right? So social contract का terms क्या है? एक ही term है. I, सिद्धांत, transfer all my unlimited powers of the state of nature onto this king or to this assembly of men, body of men, parliament. Right? So every signatory, every individual says his name, says जो भी एनार्किक वर्ल्ड में मेरा इतना पावर्स था, हथियार था, राइट्स था, सब कुछ के ऊपर, सबके ऊपर, आई एम ट्रांसफरिंग ऑल ऑफ देम टू दिस वन मैन, दैट इज द किंग. Or if there's no king, let us choose a body of men, a parliament, an assembly of men, and that assembly will have all the powers. Remember here, very crucial. Most students make mistakes here. Now, जब state नहीं है, where we are in the state of nature where there is no government. In the state of nature, all of us have what? Unlimited powers. Right? Unlimited powers, unlimited rights. I can take anything I want. I can enslave, make anyone my gulam. Right? If I have the power to do so. If there is someone more powerful than me, he will kill me. So, lion will kill the cheetah, will kill the deer, deer will be killed by the lion. Sorry, cheetah will kill the deer and cheetah will be killed by lion. Anybody who's powerful, वही सिकंदर है. क्योंकि the might here क्या scene है? Might is right. Now, state of nature में every individual has unlimited powers, right? These individuals will make a contract, right? Contract के through either king or parliament will be created, right? So all these unlimited powers of all individuals, when they are transferred through the contract to either the king or to the parliament, keep this in mind, unlimited. If every individual is transferring his or her unlimited powers, every individual unlimited power को transfer हो रहा है, so king or parliament, not both, king or parliament, they will also have unlimited powers. ये पॉइंट बहुत जरूरी है. Why? Because when we understand the next thinker, Locke, what he says is, state of nature इतना बुरा नहीं था. It was not a state of war, right? And individuals did not have unlimited powers to kill each other or seize control of each other. No. In the state of nature, Locke is saying now, in the state of nature, we were governed by natural laws. And natural laws gave us natural rights. Right to life, liberty and property. In the state of nature, every individual had right to life, liberty and property. So I could not take your property, you could not take mine. I could not hurt you, you could not hurt me. Right? Then why to come out of state of nature? He says some minor inconveniences were there. Right? Again, I'll go into detail on this in the next lecture. Right? Now it says minor inconveniences. What these minor inconveniences? देख लेंगे next class में. But now understand, minor inconveniences were there. Therefore, individuals sign a contract and come under civil society. But see, Hobbes saying individuals had unlimited rights in the state of nature. It is इसीलिए वो state of war था. तो state of war रोकने के लिए उन सारा unlimited rights को एक protector security agency को देने, या तो राजा को या तो parliament को. Right? But Locke says, so keep this equation in mind. Next thinker, Locke says no, state of nature में unlimited नहीं था, limited था, because everybody had their own natural rights, right? And अगर state of nature में if all the individuals had only limited rights, जब ये rights को transfer करेंगे, state will also have limited power, the king will also be limited. His powers will not be unlimited and his powers will only be limited. कैसे? लॉ कहता है कि भाई जब तुम कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन करोगे and you're creating an agent or agency out of that contract, you will only give it powers. You will not give it all the powers. Let's say you want a broker, an agent, a property dealer to find a home for you, right? He will find a home for you. He will negotiate with the seller, he will talk everything, but will he go through the transaction completely himself? No. He will only do what you have authorized him to do, right? And according to Locke, in the state of nature, limited rights है individual के पास. जब वही individual transfer करता है limited powers, the state will also be limited. So Locke and Hobbes are opposites here. So remember again the equation of Hobbes. Again, let's come back to Hobbes. So there were unlimited powers of individuals in state of nature, state of war था, इससे बाहर आना है. So they all sign a contract. The contract के मुताबिक they transfer all their unlimited powers, creating an unlimited sovereign. Remember, unlimited, irresistible, absolute sovereign. Now, so let's come back to the features of sovereignty. So, board में खाली हो गया जगह. There's no space, so I will write those points there. Minorities and dissenters. Minorities or dissenters. See the spelling of dissenters on the board. Minorities or dissenters cannot oppose the sovereign. They can either leave the territory or be destroyed by the majority. Or he uses the word or be justly destroyed by the rest. Why uses the word justly? Because when the contract is created, and if the minorities or the dissenters are in disagreement with the contract, if they do not like the contract, ऐसे नहीं कि वो oppose करेंगे, और because if they oppose, create problems, what will happen? Relapse, return to the state of nature, which Hobbes has denied. ये allowed नहीं है, it's prohibited, he forbade it. So what he says, either leave or be destroyed, but you cannot challenge or oppose the contract or the sovereign. Right. So next, right? Hobbes agrees with Jean Baudin. Hobbes agrees with Jean Baudin that divided sovereignty, जैसे इंग्लैंड में था between parliament and king, इसलिए तो disagreement था, that divided sovereignty is corruption, civil war and destruction. Divided sovereignty is corruption, civil war and destruction. Therefore, the most important feature, is its absoluteness. Is, see the spelling on the board, is its absoluteness. Now, you may say, boys and girls, what are the safeguards against the sovereign? Sovereign is so powerful, he's all encompassing, all powerful with awesome power. ये जो word है ना, awesome, it's been overused. घर पे राजमा चावल अच्छा है, मम्मी पूछते कैसी है, हूं awesome है भाई, ये awesome नहीं है. Awesome must not be so liberally and overused, right? Awesome denotes something awe-inspiring, like a dinosaur. What is the name of the book written by Hobbes? Leviathan. And what is Leviathan? A Leviathan is a biblical monster of gigantic proportions, like you've seen in the film Pirates of the Caribbean, Aquaman, the Kraken, that monster Kraken which lives under the sea, that is a Leviathan. Leviathan means gigantic, right? Any giant or a dinosaur or a Godzilla, now that is awesome, awe-inspiring, A-W-E, awe-inspiring. Tasty Rajma Chawal is not awe-inspiring. You can say it's tasty, delicious, delectable, but not awesome. ठीक है. So Thomas Hobbes का जो sovereign है ना, he has awesome power. Why? Like I said, unlimited power. Can these, if you see in the films Jurassic Park and all, it wreaks havoc, right? Ordinary guns cannot take it out, the dinosaur. In the end, these big dinosaurs are not killed by human beings because of the awesome power it has, right? Take the example of the recent film Dune. The Dune film series, in that universe, there are these sandworms on the planet Arrakis, and these sandworms have awesome power. They cannot be destroyed by human beings and their machines, right? So Leviathan also is like that. awesome power. Right? So you may say, if the state has so much power, what if the state hurts us, troubles us? That is a danger we have to reckon with. But Hobbes, in a way, limited the scope of the state. How? He has given so much power to the state, then what about the individuals? They can be completely consumed by the state. Now here comes the importance of context. Who was our first thinker? Plato. Yes, of course, Plato did not talk about sovereignty and all these things, but Plato gives certain specific instructions as part of the duties of the state. Plato wanted the state to regulate who you will marry, or the kind of children you have, the kind of girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife you have. Plato wanted the state to oversee and steward mating between human beings like we do with animals, breeding human beings. Plato wanted you to be in the education system for 50 years. Plato wanted to morally transform you. Plato wanted to decide what poetry you will read, what music you will listen. Plato wanted to decide whether you will be a farmer or a soldier or a king or a queen. Plato would take away your children after you give birth to them. Did Hobbes talk about any of these things? He viewed the state as a really powerful security guard. He viewed the state as a really powerful चौकीदार. हाँ, चौकीदार चोर बन सकता है. But he was not really concerned about that. He was from the times of the civil war. So civil war की समय जरूरत की चीज पहला आता है ना. So what is the most important need that you have as a citizen during a civil war? Security. Because you don't know who will support you, who will protect you. Right? You go to the policeman, one policeman may be on the side of the king, the other policeman may be on the side of parliament. Your neighbors may be your enemies, because one of your neighbors may support the king, another neighbor may support parliament. So where is security? This is civil war, boys and girls, is worse than fighting your external enemies like India, like Pakistan or China, like India-Pakistan war or India-China. Civil war is even worse. Right? So Hobbes did not have the time to worry about these things. What about freedom of speech? What about right to religion? What about right to marry? He didn't care about those things. He was only concerned about the biological survival, avoiding death of the individual. Right? He was only concerned about the survival of the individual. अगर उस survival के लिए मुझे lion को state बनाना या तो dinosaur को, doesn't really matter. ठीक है. It's like this. Question may be asked कि भाई अगर तुम्हें protection चाहिए, एक कुत्ता ले लो, like a German Shepherd dog or a Doberman. It will protect you, or a Rottweiler. Who asked you to bloody get a lion which will eat you? Right? So there is a contradiction. If you create a Godzilla dinosaur like Leviathan sovereign state, individuals are basically endangering themselves, making themselves vulnerable. The state will eat them. But Hobbes कहता है यार, it is still better than going back to anarchy, state of nature. I'd rather be a slave or a ghulam than go back to the state of nature. Slavery is better than anarchy. Why? At least slaves can survive, can live. Because remember, Hobbes is only concerned about self-preservation, biological survival of human beings. He didn't care whether the quality of that survival would be good or not. He just assumed कि अगर जिंदा है तो भाई आप लाइफ में एंजॉय कर सकते हो. बट पहले जिंदा तो होना है. अगर सिविल वॉर की सिचुएशन में हाउ कैन यू बी अलाइव? द फर्स्ट थिंग इज सर्वाइवल. बाद में जो चीज आता है देखो. राइट? सो एटलीस्ट पॉजिटिव बात क्या है? एटलीस्ट अनलाइक प्लेटो, हॉब्स डिडंट केयर अबाउट moral education, mating, producing children, 50 years education, right? What kind of poetry or what kind of literature to read? Nothing like that. He only cared about survival. So इसीलिए, even though Thomas Hobbes is not a liberal like John Locke, John Stuart Mill, who cared about our rights, right to freedoms also, not just right to life. He, of course, Hobbes did care about right to life, but the other freedoms and fundamental rights which were given and proposed by later liberals like Locke, Mill. Hobbes को हम liberal नहीं बुला सकते, but he can be called as an individualist, right? But how is he a base of a liberal? How liberalism can be traced back to Hobbes, even though he was not a liberal? What was he concerned with? What was he concerned about? Who was he concerned about? Individuals. What about the individuals? The rights of the individuals. What right of the individual? The right to live of the individuals. Therefore, we can say he was the greatest of all individualists. His only concern was the individual, right? Now, liberalism, what is it concerned about? The rights, freedoms, and most importantly, the liberties of who? Of whom? The individuals. So individuals के बारे में सबसे पहले चिंता किसने किया? Hobbes, right? हाँ, later liberals they gave more rights. Hobbes just said कि भाई right to life देख ले पहले, वो सबसे important है, ठीक है? क्योंकि उसके जमाने में right to life ही नहीं था ना, so you'd only be concerned about that, right? And another reason why Hobbes is the greatest of all individuals, not because he placed importance on right to life, because he said, यार state of nature में there are no such things as nation or people or society. People matlab not just a group of individuals, a people. How does the Constitution of India read? The first three words of the Constitution, of the preamble, it says, we the people of India. The people means a nation. Peoples of the world bolte. Why? The world has multiple nations. Asian continent has multiple nations. The peoples of India and Pakistan, we say, not the people of India and Pakistan. One people means one nation, one national community. Hobbes says, in the state of nature, in the absence of government, all individuals are fighting against each other. So when individuals are fighting against each other, they cannot call each other, oh, hum log brothers hai, nation hai, community hai, samaj hai, society. Samaj mein there are rules, whether written rules or unwritten rules, but there is overall peace in society. And this is what later Locke will say, right? Now, next heading, right? Likho heading. The state is absolute, but with limited scope. But with limited scope. देखो, strength unlimited है, so that it cannot be challenged or destroyed. ठीक है? Scope is limited. क्यों? Scope मतलब क्या? State क्या क्या कर सकता है और करना है, right? Hobbes is only concerned about state preserving peace, और उस peace को preserve करने के लिए जितना भी power चाहिए ले लो भाई. But he never talked about what Plato did, what Plato wanted. कि भाई ये करो, or oversee man-woman relationship, oversee how children are born, oversee how what literature people will read, oversee the education system. Hobbes never talked about this. All he did was simple. See, this is the state. It is like a security guard with a lot of power. That's it. Right. So, heading likha, absolute but limited scope of the Hobbesian state. The first point, right? Political order was a product of human reason and self-interest. With the primary function of preserving peace and survival of the individuals. Full stop. Unlike Plato, comma, Hobbes did not view the state as a moral institution that provides education, comma, regulates family, censors literature, CENSOR, censor karna, censors literature, etc. For Hobbes, comma, the state was like a security guard. The state was like a security guard with a lot of powers.